In a game like BeamNG Drive, there are certain rules that players must follow when speedrunning. Hard-coded ones like checkpoints or physics, and self-imposed, like no mods or game-breaking glitches. But there is one universal rule that isn't enforced by the game, or even written anywhere. Every new player learns it the hard way. Stay on the road. It seems obvious. Drive off-road in a car that isn't built for it and you'll probably regret it. Steel bushes, hidden rocks, uneven terrain. Any one of them can end the run in seconds. But every once in a while, a runner ignores that rule completely. Sometimes it leads to a shortcut so absurd that it changes a speedrun forever. While most of BeamNG's famous off-road skips involve flying downhill and surviving impossible odds, one runner had a very different idea. Instead of going down the mountain, they climbed it. East Coast, USA is one of the older maps in BeamNG, with some textures looking like they came straight out of Quake 3. But the bigger problem is hitboxes. For some reason, this map is filled with steel vegetation, tree walls made of solid BeamNG, saplings that can tear a car apart, and tiny trees capable of stopping any vehicle. Add rocks and tall grass and driving off-road becomes a gamble. That's why almost every speedrun on this map avoids the dirt like it's lava. The only exceptions are off-road scenarios, garage-to-garage challenges, and bus routes. Even then, runners stick to open fields or tiny cuts with as few obstacles as possible. Nobody wants to throw away a good run because a random see-through bush was indeed indestructible. That is, if the checkpoints even allow it. Most scenarios force you onto a specific route, but garage-to-garage challenges and bus routes offer much more freedom. Garage-to-garage runs have been optimized for years, with the runners constantly comparing every shortcut against simply staying on the road. Bus routes, however, were mostly left behind. Their shortcuts usually consisted of crossing a field or a quick drift through a corner. Even with C.H.A.D and Nitros, the bus remained huge and unwieldy, a 10.5-ton chunk of metal, even after stripping away every kilo possible. There were a few massive shortcuts that looked possible on paper, but nobody seriously considered driving a bus through them. You'd have to be completely insane to even try. Meet Kimber80, a runner with a simple goal: to dominate bus routes across the East Coast. While some records fell to a simple just drive faster, Fort Dover Way proved to be a bit more difficult. Previous runners had already pushed the route to its limits, with several records ending in exact ties. Looking at the route itself, there wasn't much left to optimize. The stop checkpoints left very few opportunities for shortcuts, and the existing cuts were too small to justify the risk. So after weeks of grinding, Kimber decided to rethink the route entirely. Instead of searching for another tiny shortcut, he looked for a completely new path. One that would make the roads almost obsolete. The first step was simple. Who needs roads when the only goal is getting from the first stop to the second as fast as possible? But that was the easy part. The East Coast is known for its thick forests, hidden rocks, and impossible terrain. As it turns out, the first half crossed an open field. Apart from constant bumps trying to throw the bus off balance, it was surprisingly manageable. The real problem, however, came in the second half: a mountain. Usually hills like this one are cut off from the main roads by a thick tree wall. But this one had a small opening created by a branching dirt path, just wide enough for a bus to squeeze through. Now came the challenge of finding a way up. This might seem like a fool's errand. This uphill is filled with trees, and any attempt to weave between them seemed far too inconsistent for a speedrun. But here's a quick question: which of these trees actually has a collision? Turns out BeamNG's hitboxes aren't consistent. Some solid-looking trees have no collision at all, others only have half of the collision, while several have full hitboxes. so Kinber used the best tool at his disposal. Hit the wall and see what sticks. The runner redrew the route over and over again until he found a path that drove right over the no collision trees. This was the optimal solution. So much so that getting it every time while doing it slowly was easy. However, speedrunning this section was pretty much a coin toss. You simply can't control the bus that well, and even the smallest mistake with positioning was pretty much a reset. The downhill section, in theory, should have been much easier. This is not a new idea. The community had been using downhill shortcuts for years in garage-to-garage runs.
My hands are sweaty. Did it. Oh my god, we did it.
And time trials. The problem was not the hill itself, but driving downhill in a 10-ton bus. This side of the hill is filled with rocks. Some are hidden in the grass, while others are much bigger and can block the pass entirely. The problems with this section start early, right before the top of the hill. Over the weeks of trial and error, Kinber tried every approach known to man. Going slow, extremely fast, and even trying to avoid rocks by going slightly further to the right. As it turns out, the best approach was somewhere right in the middle. Being fast enough to jump over initial big rocks, but not so fast that the bus would lose control. This exact middle came out to be 50-60 km per hour. But these were just initial rocks. After this jump, hidden rocks can be just as, if not more dangerous than the first ones. In many cases, the front of the bus can manage to crawl over a rock, but due to its sheer length, the rear drive shaft could still catch the very same rock moments later, instantly ending the attempt. For Kinber, this was more of an escape the mountain game. Instead of trying to navigate rocks, he simply decided to focus on control and try to exit the area as quickly and as painlessly as possible, which worked rarely. And the biggest issue was the damage. This is the start of a nearly 4-minute route. Any damage sustained here will translate to harder driving later on, and in some cases can mean loss of an attempt altogether. Not only can the bus itself sustain axle and oil pan damage, but the J-toe can be partially or fully broken off by the trees. Usually this means a very painful, uncontrollable drive that leads to a reset. Finally, after days of grinding and painstakingly carving out the perfect path across the mountain, Kinber put everything together. What was seen as an impossible shortcut has been conquered. And after nearly 6 years, a new, hidden in plain sight skip was found. That removed a whole minute from the time. For most runners, that would have been the end of the story. A new, impressive skip, an exceptional time. But for Kinber, this was just the beginning. The reverse route for Atlas Street looked even more absurd. Going in reverse, this skip was even harder. Not only would you have to climb from the rocky side, which already was painful, but it was near the end, so any mistake with fuel management beforehand or speed management during the climb would stink. After 9 months of literally throwing the bus into the wall and adjusting lines, changing speeds, and piecing together another impossible route, he conquered that one too. And that's perhaps the most impressive part of the story. By proving these shortcuts were possible, Kinber showed that even the most obvious rules in BeamNG are sometimes meant to be broken. All it takes is enough determination, and someone just crazy enough to ignore the rod. Thank you all for watching. This video was put together a bit quicker than usual, but I have some much bigger videos planned for the near future. So if you enjoyed BeamNG speedrunning content, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss them. I am Molten Mayhem, and I'll see you in the next one.